Good morning. I'd like to bring the December 15th, 2021 Planning Advisory Commission to order. If you will, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. First of all, good morning. I ask you, please, if you would, to silence your cell phones or turn them off this morning. And we're still operating under different circumstances, as most meetings are. As you can see, you're spaced out in the audience, and some commissioners are possibly watching by television or YouTube. Will be forwarding questions to me by text, so I may be looking down at times. We'll have citizens calling in by phone, and the phone number is on the screen, 706-225-3937. I remind those in the audience and those watching by television that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request that's brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report by planning staff and ask the applicant then to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request, or even to inquire about the request. Commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the City Council with the two independent recommendations. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will then have 10 days from the receipt of a letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on City Council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting, first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review PAC, our recommendation, and planning department recommendations, hear discussion on the matter. Council will then make a final decision at a second meeting called second reading. All right, that takes care of that for this morning. Minutes, we have 3 sets of minutes from, well, first one's November the 1st, 2021. Does anyone have any changes or modifications that need to be made to the minutes, commissioners? November the 1st. We also have November the 17th, 2021. Any changes noted for those? Okay. And then we have minutes from December the 1st, 2021. Anyone have any comments or questions about that? Okay. Well, we'll consider those accepted. All right. We'll get to our cases first this morning, and we have 4 rezoning cases. So let's get started. First case is REZN 1121-2151. This is a request to rezone 38.62 acres of land located at 1104 Leslie Drive. Current zoning is GC, General Commercial, RMF2, Residential Multifamily 2. Proposed zoning is PUD, Planned Use Development. The proposed use is single and multifamily housing. Aaron and Clements Incorporated is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 7. Ms. Woodson. And we're going to hear from planning staff first, please, Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area C. The current land use designation is trailer park. The future is mixed use. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will decrease to 1,266 trips from 1,644 if used for residential usage. The level of service will remain at level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is general commercial, to the south is RMF2, to the east is general commercial, to the west is general commercial. 25 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 1 call and or email regarding the rezoning, and it was in opposition.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Mr. Dudley?
What was the reason for the opposition?
Just the use type in that area being different than the other general commercial uses along that corridor.
All right, thank you.
I have
Yes, ma'am.
You said there's no school impact. Where will the children go to school that live in the development?
Yes, ma'am. Anytime there's an apartment or any type of development like that, typically the school district has told us in the past that 6%, there would be a 6% impact on that development, and that's just the number that we go with for this as well. Okay. And most of that development is going to be 55 and older.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? All right. Is there a representative from Aaron and Clements here? If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and tell us what your plans are, please.
Sure. Good morning, commission members and staff. My name is Ryan Clements of Aaron and Clements, and I'm here also with Lance Renfro, who's the real estate officer for NeighborWorks Columbus, the developer. Very briefly, NeighborWorks Columbus's mission is to provide affordable housing, and there is a crisis for affordable housing in Columbus, and so this development provides, as you see in the information, single-family homes and majority of senior housing in a variety of pods and such on the property. So there's preserved green space along the outside boundary, and all in compliance with what's required.
Okay. Mr. Dudley, I believe, has a question.
If I remember correctly, NeighborWorks came before us a couple of years ago wanting to rezone either the same parcel or an immediately adjacent parcel for a similar proposal. Can you talk about whether that's the same parcel or whether those two are related, and if not, how the other one is going? Because when I drove by, I didn't see much signs of development other than that some of the mobile homes that used to be there had been taken down.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to the prior. Lance? I'll have Lance Renfro come forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. If you would give us your name and address.
Sure. My name is Lance Renfro, and I work with NeighborWorks at 345 6th Street here in Columbus, Georgia. Yes, a few years ago we did rezone. A few of the parcels that were a part of this package were not zoned residential, so we went ahead and zoned it residential in preparation for the development that we were doing. Y'all graciously approved that, so thank you for that. And now we have Ryan here before us rezoning or requesting a rezone to PUD so that we can do more things with that property.
Okay, so this actually, the development will be handled by NeighborWorks, is what I'm understanding.
Well, we own the property.
Okay.
Ryan and or Aaron and Clements will be handling the development.
Okay, all right. I just didn't understand the roles there. Any other questions, commissioners? Ms. Weekly?
Yes, could you tell me how many units you're planning to put?
Yes, ma'am. Single-family homes, 43. For those, for 55 and older in our 130 in one large development, and then pods, in smaller pods, what we call big houses, there'll be a total of 56 for that, for a total of 229 units.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Clements.
Thank you.
Right. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward to speak for this case? Please come forward at this time. And nobody's moving. All right. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this case? Please come forward at this time. And the same. Okay, commissioners, I'm sorry. Did you want to come speak on behalf of this case? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, please.
I'm William Shirley. My address is 7248 Grinwood Drive. I suppose we're talking about this new development that's going in across One Stranger Road. Oops.
No, sir. We're not on that case yet.
Oh.
This is This one's off Victory Drive. All right. Anyone else? All right, Commissioners, the floor is open for a motion, please. Ms. Weekly?
I make a motion to approve rezoning case 11212151, request to rezone 38.62 acres of land located at 1104 Leslie Drive from general commercial residential multifamily to planned use development. Proposed use meets codes and regulations of the Columbus Consolidated Government.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Dudley, several? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to accept, please raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to case number 2, REZN 11212152. This is a request to rezone 0.50 acres of land located at 1807 First Avenue. Current zoning is SAC, which is Special Activity Center. Proposed zoning is GC General Commercial. The proposed use is pet daycare. New Columbus 1 LLC is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 7, and that's also in Ms. Woodson's. We'll hear from planning staff first, please, Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. General land use is consistent for planning area F. The current land use designation is light manufacturing and industrial. The future land use is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit. If a permit is required, property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will decrease to 63 from 197 if used for commercial use. The level of service will remain at a level A. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. To the north is SAC, which is Special Activity Center. To the south is SAC. To the east is General Commercial, and to the west is SAC and MROD. 10 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 3 calls and or emails regarding the rezoning, and those 3 were in opposition.
Questions, Commissioners? Any questions, Commissioners, of planning staff this time? All right. We're looking for a representative from New One LLC. If you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Tell us what your plans are.
Good morning. My name's Haley Lyman. Sorry, guys. My name's Haley Lyman. My address is 1025 First Avenue, Columbus, Georgia. I represent the owners. I'm with Caldwell Banker Commercial. I'm the broker representing the owners on this project. We intend to put a pet daycare. This will be the proposed tenant's second location in Columbus. So they are already located in Harmony Place off our Airport Thruway and have been in business there at that location for 11 years and have had no issues with their current location. They are growing exponentially and are looking to serve the more pet-friendly hotels that have come to Uptown area, along with the many new apartments and workers in the Uptown area. Many of their customers live and work in Midtown and Uptown, and they are exponentially growing to where they are turning clients away. So this will be an expansion for them.
Okay, so this is an additional unit to the
Yes.
one that they already have in Harmony Place.
Yep.
All right. Commissioners, do you all have any questions of Ms. Lyman? All right. Yes, Ms. Thomas.
How are you doing? The traffic that's coming in and out of your establishment, how would that be? Would it be a lot of cars, parking space good?
It's a great question. Because it's more of a pet daycare, it is a drop off your pet and go. So generally speaking, the amount of parking will not be impacted because the cars will not be staying there. The only cars that would be there would be the workers that would be there, and then obviously the people who are coming to pick their dog up and leave. So currently at their current location, they have kind of an easy drop off, in which they'll also be implementing at this location as well.
And how many workers are you employing?
That would be a question for the owner, which is also here.
All right, if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Robert Korn, owner and operator at Playful Pups Doggy Daycare. I believe you were asking about parking. We have 10 employees on staff at a time. That's the max number that we have at a time. And I believe where we've looked at this site, there are 19 parking places, which would be absolutely, adequate for drop-off and pickup on top of our 10 employees.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, that answers your question. I do have a question. First Avenue, I noticed it's closed off when I went to look at it. Is that going to always remain closed, or will it eventually be reopened?
That will be reopened.
Okay. All right. All right, any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Baker.
What do y'all anticipate the hours will be for people to pick up, drop off, that kind of thing? I assume that there will be someone there overnight. Is that how that works?
That's another question.
Actually, no, we are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.,
Okay.
which falls along with the city's guidelines for when we can let pets out. And that is, clients cannot drop off before 7 a.m. or pick up after 7 p.m. We do not have kennel techs that stay overnight. The dogs are kenneled at night. We're there till 8:30, 9 o'clock, just getting everything cleaned up and out. And we get there between 5:30 and 6 a.m. That's when our employees show up. And again, customers pick up and drop off between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
All right.
When you
Mr.
say
Dudley?
dogs are kenneled overnight, does that mean that,
I'm sorry, sir.
when you say that dogs are kenneled overnight, does that mean that if you have people who want to leave their dogs overnight, you'll take them to a kennel, or how does that work?
No, we kennel there on the location. We have kennels in our facility. We do daycare during the day, and then
Right.
they are kenneled at night.
So the dogs stay there at night?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Inside the building.
Inside the
Yes.
building, yeah, I was going to ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Okay, I know animals make a lot of noise. Is there a sound barrier or something so at nighttime when the neighbors are resting, this noise won't?
Well, at this location, there are concrete walls. It is a center block wall location. It is also with the elevation up above most of the surrounding areas. Trust me, it's less noise than the train tracks right in front of the building. Dogs do bark, and I'm not going to say that they don't bark. Of course they do. We're only allowed 4 dogs at a time out in the yard, so that limits the sound. And of course, being inside, like I said, concrete walls, there's not a whole lot of sound there.
Thank you so much.
All
I
right,
think
Ms.
another
Weekley.
point to be made about the sound is that if you look at other locations in Columbus, his current location in Harmony Place, it's all in line with shopping centers. So it's in the middle of and surrounded by other tenants. And he has been there 11 years and has obviously been successful there without any other issues from surrounding tenants or the landlord complaining about nuisances. Other examples of that are going to be Rockstar Pets in the 13th Street Village. And then I think, what was the?
Well, there are several that are in shopping centers, Pause and Play, different doggy daycares, and we all do what we can to mitigate the sound and, obviously keep it clean. Nobody wants to go in somewhere and then you're there 2 years and you get complaints and have to leave. So we do everything we can to get along with our neighbors, keep the sound down, keep it very clean. We don't get complaints in my shop. We're very clean. We do a great job there, and we want a chance to go downtown somewhere that we can service the pet-friendly downtown area, uptown area. Like Haley was talking about before, there are lots of pet-friendly hotels now. Uptown is very pet-friendly, but even at a pet-friendly hotel, you can't leave your dog in your hotel room while you go whitewater rafting or go out to dinner. So you have to take your dog with you. That limits the tourism in Columbus. So we feel if we could service the uptown area, somebody could leave their pup with us while they go whitewater rafting, go out to dinner, check out the local sites, So.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Weekley.
What would be the maximum number of pets?
Well, for this location, we're looking to do between 60 and 80 pets a day, and that's busy summertime, busy weekends, busy holidays. Normally, we'd have between 50 and 60. And those range in sizes from 3 pounds to, 150 pounds, just depending. Obviously, if we get all Great Danes that day, there's going to be fewer. But if we all get little Yorkies that day, there'll be, a higher count.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
The outside play area, you said only
Yes,
4 dogs at a time can go out there?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you put up a fence that's,
Yes, ma'am. We have planned to put up fencing. There was a loading dock on the side of this building, and we're going to fence that area and half of the front parking lot to make 2 or 3 separate playground areas with some playground equipment and things like that. And that'll be where we take the dogs outside. And then there will be play areas inside as well, along with the kennels. It's a 10,000 square foot building. It's not a small building. So it's, large enough to keep, say, 50, 60 dogs with plenty of play area as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Baker?
What's your capacity at your current location?
It is also 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
So you're looking at roughly the same numbers that I've quoted here.
Yeah.
That's where we get those numbers, is from the previous location. We
Gotcha.
know kind of what we can house, and once we're full, we're full. So it's not like just take them all and see what you can get in. I mean, once we get up to about 80 dogs, that's where you start counting and saying, okay, this is it. And if somebody else comes in, I'm sorry. If you don't have a reservation, we're just full for the day.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right. Thank you very much. All right. As usual, I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak for this case. Please come forward at this time. And that said, no one else is moving, and I'm assuming you're against the case. So if you would please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm Ken Henson. I live at 612 Broadway, and I'm here with City Mill Properties. And we've also got Jennifer Wellborn with Riverflow Yoga. We've got Cassie Myers, who works for Pizzo Management, that's operating the hotel. And we've got Tracy Sayers, who is representing one of the owners of the hotel. And we have Selena Dills, who works for Pizzo Management. But I'm going to start out, if you'll bear with me, I want to give you a little history so you'll understand why we have to be really, really careful with what goes on this piece of property and why we're opposing a general commercial rezoning, and we're opposing specifically it being a dog daycare. So if John would put up. So the slide above you is the city village plan from 10 years ago. The city paid $200,000. They had some experts come into town, and they came up with a plan for all of City Village. And this is what they showed at the City Mills area. This is 2012. And I think most people that were familiar with this plan thought they were crazy. Nobody thought this would happen. I thought they were crazy. At that time, I had no interest in City Mills. But this is actually what is taking place there. City Mills is in the process of being redeveloped into a 64, 65-room hotel, event center, restaurant. It's a $15 million development. The building to the north there is where Mercer Medical is gone. That's $35 million. Up north, the Housing Authority is building banks. It's about a $25 million investment. So just in front of you, $75 million has been invested. And so it's really important what goes in that building right there that's in the middle of all this. So let's go to the next slide if we could. Oh, you think I can operate this?
Is this a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I can, so you can.
Okay. Okay.
And that says a lot.
Yeah, it does. Which button do I
I
push?
think the right one.
All right. Yeah.
Where does he point it? Over here?
Okay, I got it. So this is the original city plan for the Riverwalk. And this is the reason I got involved in this project. The city had money, and they were going to put a Riverwalk between these two buildings. And it was going to be surrounded by a fence. It was going to be asphalt, and nobody knew what was going to happen to these buildings. And at the end, they were going to put a parking lot with brick pavers. They were going to spend $2 million, and nothing was going to happen to these buildings. So I ended up getting involved with Charlie Bowers, trying to find a way to make the Riverwalk work better through that area so that those buildings could be redeveloped. And didn't plan on it, ended up buying it with Historic Columbus. And so after we bought it in 2015, we started stabilizing it. And Historic Columbus put up most of the money to stabilize these buildings. And fortunately, we had the Pizzo group come in with this great idea to put a hotel in. And so they came in, and since 2000, I can't read all those numbers up there, 2018, they've been involved with this project, and we've been trying to complete it with a hotel, restaurant, and event center. We have opened up the hotel, and we've got 34 rooms open now. We hope to open the rest of it in the spring. The Riverwalk has been complete, and so we've got this great development going on there, and we have this one building that's adjacent to us that we have to be really, really careful as to what goes there so that it doesn't interfere with what we've got and what Mercer has put in there so that everything in this area is successful. This morning I'll call Larry French up about something, and he asked me what I was doing today. I told him I was coming down here before the Planning Advisory Commission. I told him I was coming down here on the dog daycare. He said, well, that's funny. I'm doing work for Cross Point Church. He said, they don't like it at all. He said they have noise and it smells, and I've been out there. So we don't want a dog daycare interfering with this hotel operation. We don't want general commercial, because if the dog daycare is not there, then we could have some other use that might interfere with all the redevelopment that we've done in this area. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Yes, Ms. Thomas, go ahead.
Okay, how are you doing? You stated that some other kind of business could come in that building if the daycare don't get there. What type of business are what you're talking about?
You mean what business could go there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I think a fitness studio could go there. The problem with this building is that it has limited parking. And so if you want to put a restaurant in there, for example, it's not going to work because there's not enough parking.
Right.
Let me see if I got this. These are some pictures of what the mill looked like before we renovated it, and these are what it looks like now on the outside. This is the outside of City Mills where this dog daycare would go. Inside the hotel, that's the Riverwalk. View from a guest room at where the dog daycare is going to go. These are the distances. You're about 50 feet from the building in the hotel. So this is an overview of the City Mills plan. The one thing these slides don't show is that the city has a sidewalk plan to go along First Avenue. And that makes the parking at this location difficult also. So, you know, I've looked at what could go on that site. The best, in my opinion, the highest and best use would be apartments. I would take the metal building down. I'd put a 5-story apartment building on there. You'd have some views, and it would be compatible with everything else in the area. But a fitness, and there are probably some other uses similar to that would work there that wouldn't cause noise or parking issues.
So the apartments would be upscale apartments you're talking about?
Yes, there are lots of uses for this property. Parking for City Mills, in order to make our development work, we had to buy property from TSIS to get enough parking. And so we have enough parking for City Mills, but we don't have enough parking for somebody else. So whatever goes on that site needs to have enough parking for whatever they put there. And that's going to be the biggest constraint on the development of that property.
Thank you.
All right.
I have
Commissioners, any other questions?
one question.
Yes, Ms. Brown.
Does the hotel allow guests to bring dogs?
Yes, the hotel is dog-friendly. If you go over there today, they've even got I think a dish in the lobby there where they can get water and so forth. But most hotels today are dog-friendly, and they work with the guests to make that work.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioners? Mr. Henson.
I do.
All right.
Ralph.
Someone. I'm sorry,
Just one
Mr. Baker.
quick-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You mentioned the idea of apartments. Would that not also have constraints because of parking?
Yes, but for apartments, you could put, there's a way to configure that. You could build on the existing structure there if you wanted to, and you still, if you worked on the parking on the side, you'd have over 20 parking spaces, so you could have 21 bedroom apartments. You could make the parking work for apartments. Yeah. But one of the other problems with the existing building is the parking backs across city right-of-way. It backs across a sidewalk that the city's going to put in, and Selena's going to talk to you about that.
Okay, if you would give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Selena Dills. I live at 9700 Woolridge Heights Drive.
Okay.
So to go back to the question that you just had about the dog-friendly hotel, it is dog-friendly, but it does not allow for dogs on every room in the hotel. It's only the first 2 floors, which is about 15 rooms, and we would never expect for all 15 rooms to necessarily have pets all at the same time. But most of the development is not going to have pets due to allergies and other things. We're pet-friendly, but there has to be a place for everyone to be comfortable there, too. So this is just talking about the zoning a little bit. You already mentioned that it's a special activity center zoning. The reason why we oppose it being changed is because the intention of general commercial, and when you look at the regulations, specifically Chapter 2.3.7 of the Unified Development Ordinance, it requires a major arterial road, and there's not a major arterial road there. It's a 2-lane highway, not even a highway, it's just a 2-lane road. This shows the building, and the red dot that you see is I'll call it south of this building. I don't know my north and south from the orientation, but you can see that that road is very small compared to the road when you look over to the right of that. And you'll see there, as parking was talking about, those parking spaces do back into the road, which is, again, another regulation. You can't back out onto the street without an exemption for that. And in the application, there's not any request for an exemption for that. Just to go back a minute, we talked about the permitted GC uses. These are some examples of things that could be used once it's turned general commercial. And this really, if you look at this list, it doesn't gel well with what the atmosphere and environment is that's trying to be created in that City Mills area. When parking was mentioned also, again, we're talking about it a lot because it is a major issue. They're only applying for 11 spaces, but the way the building is set up, it's about 9,600 square feet plus some outside area. As it's currently zoned, that only requires 2 spaces per 2,000 square feet. So that's not a problem. It has adequate space for the building that it is. But once you turn it into the kennel facility, it requires 1 space for 250 square feet of office space and 1 space per 300 square feet of animal boarding and run, which is going to put you in the 40-something parking spaces necessary. And even if you use the numbers that they gave where they have 10 employees, there's not 10 spaces, so there's literally no spaces if everybody drives their own car. There's no spaces for the people that come to drop off their animals at any time. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the noise barrier that was mentioned earlier. The code regulations required that they would put up a brick or a masonry fence, or a wood fence, but they're only asking to put up a metal or a chain link fence with some privacy slots, which offers no kind of noise insulation whatsoever. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Ms. Dills, we do have a question here.
Yes.
If you could, Mr. Dudley.
You said that you allow pets on your first and second floors.
Yes, sir.
Do the pets stay in the hotel during the day?
They're with the owners, and we still have noise regulations that are on that. I mean, if they left their animals behind and there was barking or other things like that,
right,
that would be a problem, and we don't allow for that. They'd be asked to leave the hotel.
So you don't allow owners to leave the pets in the rooms while the owners go out?
I believe that's our policy. Yes, that's our policy.
Okay.
Any other questions of Ms. Dills? Anyone? All right. Thank you very much. And if you would, Ms. Myers, just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Cassie Myers. I live at 30 Flagstone Drive in Fortson, and I'm here representing the Hotel, Restaurant, and Event Center. So this is City Mills. Mr. Henson showed you this picture earlier, just as kind of a recap of how close it is to the area being proposed to be a dog daycare. One of the biggest things that I'd like to mention is the fact that we're an independent brand. And what that means is that we are not backed by any kind of franchise. So we're not a Marriott, we're not a Hilton, we're not an IHG. So the only way that you can find us is through an Expedia, a Yelp, a Hotels.com. And I bring that point to you because a lot of people are not going to find us unless they're looking for us. They're going to read reviews because they don't know that we're backed by Marriott or Hilton, because we're not. So there's not a lot of trust that goes into booking with us prior to having knowledge of staying with us. We talk a lot in our website and when we talk to people about it being a tranquil and quiet and relaxing and inviting environment because we're located directly on the river. Almost every single one of our 30 rooms that are open now and an additional 32 rooms that will open in the spring will have a river view. Several of the rooms are on the back side of the building that will face the doggy daycare, but still we've done a lot of work to try to mitigate the sound. We've put in great HVAC systems. We've spent a lot more money than normal contractors do for those kinds of things so that you can hear the river. Or you can at least hear nothing and it be quiet and relaxing and tranquil. We are also opening a restaurant in the late spring where we will have outdoor dining. Not necessarily something that you want to hear a lot of dog barking during your lunch break or dinner break, even if you, especially if you, like they've mentioned before, you don't have anyone staying overnight in the building. There is no control for animals if something, if it's loud and there's not a staff member there that can mitigate that. We also will have a large outdoor area for events, so weddings, family reunions, different things like that. Can you imagine standing there saying your vows and having, even just 4 dogs that are going off in the background while you're trying to say I do to your spouse? So just things like that we're really thinking about when it comes to this. We've worked really, really hard to make this space unique to Columbus. There's nothing else that's like it that we have right now. And so it's really important to us to keep that that environment that we've created and that we've cultivated, that we keep it the way that it is. I just wanted to show you a couple of the reviews that we have out there right now. I just chose one from each of the sites, so an Expedia, a TripAdvisor, and a Yelp, I believe, and each of those talk about it being quiet or relaxing or quaint or tranquil. Again, this is just a very small example. There are hundreds of reviews already that all talk about that. And so, like I said, we just wanted to leave you with the knowing that that is what guests are looking for, that is what they're expecting, and it would really be detrimental to us to not be able to provide that, since that is really what people are looking for when they stay with us. And I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions of Ms. Myers? Anyone? All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jennifer Wellborn. I live at 1820 Stark Avenue. I'm here representing Riverflow Yoga as a co-owner of the studio. Does anyone take yoga? Yes, no?
Where are you located?
We are, if you see this is a picture, we are literally located on, it depends on where you look. We're the bottom floor of City Mills Hotel.
Okay.
So if you're on the Riverwalk, you just walk right into our studio. However, it's kind of, I guess you would consider maybe basement level if you were coming from the parking deck. You kind of have to walk down to the Riverwalk. So we're literally located right between the main building on the, I guess, the eastern side and the western side building. Just to give you a little more information about us, we've been in business for 8 years. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in the City Mills location. We were relocated literally in the middle of COVID in order to take advantage and participate in the revitalization of that North Riverwalk area. We provide yoga services 7 days a week. We typically start at 6 in the morning. Our last class is in around 7:30 at night. We currently have 29 classes. We're serving over 360 students a week. Our goal for 2022, which we are already adding our new January schedule, will have at least 33 to 35 classes, and we're looking to serve at least 500 students a week. the location, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you these pictures. If you will look, this is standing on the Riverwalk, and that warehouse is exactly where that dog kennel will be. You'll see in that kind of upper right picture, that's our side door into the yoga studio. We use that outdoor space for outdoor yoga classes. We also have meditation classes. We offer massage and other wellness services. So you can see how detrimental having a kennel in that location would be to us. I understand 4 dogs, as Cassie said, outside at a time. I mean, I take my dogs to Macon Road Vet, and they have 2 dogs out and they're barking all the time. You pull up, you can hear dogs barking from the inside. And that's constant. That would be, I would consider to be a major nuisance and a detriment to our business. Our brand is a peaceful, tranquil place to basically de-stress, come in, take a break from your crazy day. To have dogs barking at random times would be extremely hurtful to our business and the classes that we hold there. And as Kathy said, our growth is really based on, social media these days. And I want to show you some of the quotes. I mean, these are just from the last few weeks. Beautiful space of peace, tranquility, a sanctuary, just a lovely place to be. So we're very concerned that this particular use will not only be a detriment to our business, but also hinder any growth we want to have in that area. We partner with the hotel to have yoga and wellness services for guests. Currently speaking with Mercer Medical School this week, we're going to offer a student discount to those students just right up the Riverwalk, so those stressful medical students can come down, take yoga, take meditation, take a break from their hectic lives. So that is really our true concern here. Obviously, if you look at that picture, it would be great to have that not in that state. But this use is just a deal breaker for us. So if you have any questions?
Anyone have any questions of Ms. Welborn? Anyone? Yes, Ms. Brown.
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Where, I'm speaking to the gentleman that wants to,
Yes, ma'am. Here, you want to get up?
yes. Where, in regards to this picture, would your outside dog runs be?
If you're looking at this picture, you see all the mold and the disrepair on that wall. That is the back wall, and the outside area would be on the other side of the building. There would also be an outside area on the far left side of that building that you cannot see from there.
Sorry, guys, I was just going to go back to something. Okay. That's from the hotel.
Yeah, so it's the opposite, basically the opposite corner of what you're looking at right here. The opposite corner would be the outside area. Now, I do understand people's concern with noise, and I'm not going to tell you dogs don't bark. They do. Now, these are center block walls. We can mitigate the sound to some extent. But I'm going to tell you, there's not a whole lot else that you can do with this building. I know Mr. Henson, well, you could tear it down and build a high-rise apartments with 19 parking places. I'm sure the apartments would only need, a staff of a few, and maybe you could fit 20 and tear it down and, spend millions of dollars rebuilding it. If the owners have millions of dollars, they can do that. If not, you really are limited on this building. You're telling the owners of this building that they can't do anything with it if you don't rezone it. So whether it's us or somebody else, I think you got to think really hard about 19 spaces in a 10,000 square foot building. What could go here? Well, there used to be an elevator repair shop here. That wasn't quiet. You could put an auto mechanic. Well, that's not going to be quiet. I don't know. You're basically condemning this building if you don't rezone it for us. So,
Can I address?
Sure.
Well, I have one more question for him. What are your plans for cleaning up the building? And you're going to paint it? And
yes, ma'am. Our plans are to clean it up, and we're going to have murals on both of those walls. That's going to be kind of our advertisements, because you can see those walls from whitewater rafting, you can see them, as well as all the way across Second Avenue, you can see that building. So we're going to put murals on those two walls that are very visible. We are going to improve the space. We're not just going to use it as is. You know, as is, there's not a whole lot of use for it. We have to improve it, we have to clean it up, and we have to make it better to fit the neighborhood and the environment.
I'm not against that building being cleaned up, for sure.
Ms. Welber, will you please address the microphone,
My
please?
concern
Thank
is
you.
80 dogs in that building, right next to my yoga studio. And we were addressing parking issues. Like I said, we have about 350, 360 students a week parking. There's parking right behind the hotel. There's a lot. If you're looking at this picture, it would be to the left. But I'm not understanding the traffic study, that there's going to be a reduced traffic with this use. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I'm kind of curious as to where those numbers came from. Right now, obviously, it's vacant.
Well, I didn't do the traffic study.
No,
but
no, I'm just asking.
The higher the traffic count in that area, the better. The more business we can bring to that area, it seems like the better for the area. I mean, it's a hotel, it's a restaurant. These are things that you want people to get to. If we can raise the traffic count, I mean, that's a plus, not a minus.
Well, I would say that, you know, and Cassie can address this, there is a restaurant being planned for the second building on the side, City Mill side of the river. There will be outdoor seating. Is that correct? Which is directly, if we go back to where my pictures were. Sorry about that. We'll get there. All right, so say you're like standing at that Riverwalk and you're looking at that. If I'm you, you turn right around, there's an outdoor restaurant right behind there. That's part of the overall development. So directly across from where that green space is. Just literally walk across the Riverwalk, and that's where people will be sitting out there eating. So I think there are other uses that could be in that space. We
Such
just
as?
highly, you know, we are very in opposition of a dog kennel for various reasons.
It's also worth mentioning.
I have a question of
Yes,
Mr. Mr. Renfro. What are the uses in SAC?
Hold on one second.
SAC was specifically created for the TSIS campus.
Okay.
You all recently agreed to allow college or university in SAC and residential in SAC. Other than that, it's specifically for TSIS.
Okay, thank you.
It's also worth mentioning, if you're looking at this picture and looking at the back of that building, to the front of the building, of course, is First Avenue, and directly on the other side of First Avenue is a train track. I don't know if trains make a lot of noise, but I think they do. So if you're looking for quiet tranquility next to a train track, you might just be in the wrong location to begin with.
All right. Commissioners, do y'all have any other questions of this group here that's standing before us? Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Okay, you say you have 2 floors in your hotel that dogs can't stay?
Oh,
No, the other lady.
That would be Ms. Myers.
yeah, I'm yoga.
I'm
She's
sorry.
Ms. Welborn, yoga.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You have 2 floors, you said that the dog can come along with their master.
Yes, ma'am.
He's speaking about 80 dogs in his business.
Right.
So in other words, we do have somewhere down there where dogs are accommodated if they come with their owner.
Sure, and that's, I think, the biggest difference is that, realistically speaking, you would think that an owner could control their dog. And the likelihood of them bringing more than 1 dog, maybe 2, but usually then it would be 2 adults with those 2 dogs. And again, you would think that they would be able to control their dogs. 10 staff members for 80 dogs is very difficult, I would imagine, to control and to mitigate that sound.
Have you ever had any problems with the dogs being in the motel in your area?
We have not, and I will say, just in complete transparency, we've only been open since October. So while we have had several dogs stay with us, we have had no issues thus far. And I don't believe that we've ever had more than one dog with one owner at a time.
And along those lines, do you not have issues with guests wanting to bring their dogs with them, but then leave them in the hotel or leave them somewhere where they go out and whitewater raft because the dog can't go with them for that?
We have not had those issues so far, and like Ken mentioned, we have very strict noise guidelines. I mean, we let you know when you sign the waiver that you're bringing an animal that you will be asked to leave if there is any kind of noise violation. I don't have those specifics of what that waiver looks like, but we're very adamant about making sure that each guest is comfortable, which again is why we're limiting it to 2 floors, because the rest of the guests, there are several guests that don't want to stay in a room that a dog has ever stayed in for allergy purposes or cleanliness purposes, although we do a great job of keeping everything clean. It's one of those things that once a dog has stayed in there, or a cat, it's pet friendly, doesn't necessarily have to be a dog, that you don't necessarily want to stay in there. So limiting it to 2 floors helps us control that no pet has ever stayed in certain rooms for guests that don't want that.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioners?
And I would like to speak to the train comment that he made. A train doesn't run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. constantly, but dogs outside will be constantly barking from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is during drop-off and pickup times. The train goes by randomly, which we can also mitigate, especially Jennifer. She knows when the train goes by, she can not have the class.
Ms. Brown has a question over here.
Yes.
As far as dogs in the hotel,
yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't it be an advantage if you were able to offer guests that they could leave their pets in a facility that they could walk to? Because personally, I do not like to stay in a hotel room that's had animals, and I own a dog.
Me too.
But I don't want somebody else's dog in a room that I'm going to stay in. And
Sure.
if you've got this beautiful hotel, I personally wouldn't want to take a chance of a pet running a room.
Sure.
Whereas if you could have an agreement with the pet facility and you would have that to offer to your guests, that they could board their pets and maybe have an agreement that they save a certain amount of pet spaces for your hotel, wouldn't that be a plus that you could offer to your guests?
We have, and I'm not an animal owner, so I'm going to just speak to what I know that our guests have said. They like having their animal with them at the hotel. They like having their dog sleeping with them, which is why they brought it, which again is why we're limiting the number of rooms that allow animals, so that someone like me and you, when we go and we can say, those 2 floors are pet only. Okay, well, I want to stay on the 4th floor because I know that room has never had an animal. Whereas with, just having, like you mentioned, a relationship with the pet facility, that owner would be leaving their animal across the street with no one watching them overnight. I'm not an animal owner, so obviously people are comfortable with that. But I would assume if you're across the street and the hotel is already pet friendly, that you would just rather have your animal stay with you because they're close by. But we don't allow guests to leave their dogs in their room during the day. I would hope that everybody follows that rule. We have not had any issues with that so far.
And let me say this, we are looking at land use for this particular piece of property, and let's refocus here, okay? Anyway, does anyone else have any questions regarding what the applicant has proposed? And we understand the opposition, I think, pretty fully. And I think I have one other that would like to say, you're welcome to come up and speak one more.
Just a couple other comments of some of the things that they made. We did file with the application for an exception with the parking, and with the GC zoning, a fitness facility would also require the parking. A restaurant or bar, or whatever it might be, will require parking under GC zoning, which we're aware of, which we submitted with the application for an exception with that. One of the things that they also brought up was the fencing. We are technically the code specifies a masonry or wood fence. We are fine with that, but we thought aesthetically wise, we were trying to improve the building, improve the exterior, clean up the back of it, do landscaping, and install a fence that would last longer than wood and is more aesthetically pleasing. So that's why we proposed doing the metal fence. And obviously, if we thought that there was a better noise barrier or anything that would be better for the business, we're happy to explore other fence options, but we proposed the metal for the aesthetics purposely only. And again, we are improving the building of the exterior to be more in line with the level of development of what City Mills is doing.
All right, thank you, Eve.
Can I ask just one question? I'm understanding that the lease you're looking at is a 10-year lease?
You need, ma'am, you need to address the commission.
Yes,
Let's get that straight.
I'm understanding that
Okay.
the lease that they're signing is a 10-year lease.
Okay, well,
So I'm just saying.
we're looking at use. We're actually looking at land use. Yes, and could you give me your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you. My name is Sam Burricker, and my address is 2950 Gray Rock Road, Midland, Georgia. I'm one of the two owners. Just wanted to say a couple things, if that's okay. I guess, first of all, we're new owners. When we bought the building, it wasn't up for sale yet. At least it wasn't listed. So we're new to this situation. Now, I guess one question I'd have is, I understand, that they're worried about this being a dog facility. But I guess one question I'd have is, why didn't y'all purchase the building? Because obviously y'all don't want the building to be anything else. And it is an eyesore now. We want it to not be an eyesore, but we want to be able to use this building and have it be a part of some type of business in Columbus. And we want it to fit in. We want it to look nice. And but I don't understand why, if you have such a problem with this building, why y'all didn't buy it and tear it down and get rid of it. And rather than letting me come in and buy it and be a problem now.
The history of that building is Mr. Barfield owned an elevator company, and he sold out to Oracle. He leased it to Oracle, and he was occupying the building, and we were fine with him being there. Ideally, we talked to him about putting a mural on the back of the wall. He was okay with that. We were going to try to clean up that wall. But we didn't have a problem with the elevator building. I did try to buy the building from him. Early in the process, I tried to buy the building because we ended up buying property from TSIS that we needed for parking. We needed more parking. So naturally, I tried to buy the building from Mr. Barfield. He had a lease on it to Oracle. He wasn't interested in buying it. I tried on multiple occasions to buy the building, but he was unwilling to sell. It's just what happened. But one other point I want to make. We are assuming that these dogs inside, when they bark, we won't hear them. But every time I've ever been to a kennel or vet, you hear the dogs barking everywhere. And so I'm afraid that we're going to hear the dogs barking from inside, whether it's a concrete wall or not, depending on how they insulate the roof and everything else. So they're asking us to assume the risk of a dog daycare, of the noise. That's what it really comes down to. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments from either parties at this time? All right. Commissioners, the floor is open for a motion on this case for New Columbus One LLC. Mr. Dudley?
Okay, in respect to application REZN 1121-2152, request to rezone half an acre of land at 1807 First Avenue from Special Activity Center to general commercial with a proposed use of pet daycare. I recommend that we deny the request.
Okay, we have a recommendation for denial. Do we have a second? We have a second from Ms. Thomas. Any discussion? All those in favor to deny this case, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And those not in favor to deny, please raise your right hand. Okay, it's 4-3. So we will make a recommendation to deny on those numbers. All right, thank you very much. All right, we move on to our next case, which is case number 3, REZN 11-21-2154, a request to rezone 49.27 acres of land located at 0 Old Guard Road. Current zoning is RE1, Real Estate 1. Proposed zoning is SFR 4, Single Family Residential 4. The proposed use is Single Family Subdivision. Banana Bay LLC is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 2. Mr. Davis. And we will hear from planning staff first, please. Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area A. The current land use designation is vacant, undeveloped. Future land use is mixed use. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to an issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 1,110 from 469 trips if used for residential usage. The level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of Columbus Consolidated Government for residential usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is RE1, to the south is RE1, to the east is RE1, to the west is RE1. Excuse me. 35 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls or emails regarding their requests. There's no additional information. There are 2 members of the school district here for any questions that you may have directly related to that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Renfro. Commissioners, do y'all have any questions of Mr. Renfro at this time? Mr. Dudley?
I just have a request. If nobody else has a presentation, could you put up on the screen the aerial map of the site? Because I think that might help inform the discussion.
All right, they could be working on that. Any other questions of staff?
Did you bring a thumb drive?
I have a black and white copy right here, if you'd like it. Oh, he wants an area. Okay. Sir. Gotcha. Gotcha. There you go. All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right. Who's here to present for this case? If you would give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Austin Gibson. I'm an attorney at Page Stranum here in Columbus. Our address is 1111 Bay Avenue, 3rd floor, Columbus, Georgia. I'm here this morning on behalf of the applicant, Banana Bay LLC. And Banana Bay has been working with Moon and Meeks to get a site plan for this site and to go ahead and get this thing, mapped out and everything. And so today we're hoping to rezone what's approximately 49.27 acres. And it is located on Old Guard Road. And of course, Old Guard Road directly to the south of here is Veterans Parkway, Northside High School area, just to kind of orient you a little bit. And the proposed, the current zoning is, of course, RE1, and the proposed zoning is SFR 4. So we would be keeping it as a single-family residential use. And the proposed use of the property is to develop a subdivision of residential houses. Approximately 115 houses is what the current site plan calls for. And so the new proposed use of SFR4 is consistent with the surrounding land uses. I know Mr. Renfro pointed out that, the surrounding properties are all, for the most part, RE1. Directly in the bottom left of this picture, that's Greystone Point, Columbus. That's it's zoned RO right now, and it's going to be a Greystone multifamily development. And then the other surrounding properties that are zoned RE1, they're owned by property owners such as Vulcan Materials and Millwork Masters and some other developers and things, George Crown. So there's no real residential homes on the at least the directly adjacent properties there.
Except for the one that's on Old Guard that's just been built.
Right. I guess
there is one house that they have just recently built across from the school there.
Okay. I see. I wasn't aware of that. But otherwise, those other properties are the owners. And then, of course, you've got Veterans Middle School directly across the street there. And as I said, the plan is to, rather than doing a multifamily development or anything like that, the plan would be a single-family development based on the site plan that you guys, may have seen in the packet. It's about 115 units. And each of those units would be split into different lots. And so you'd have, the zoning ordinance requires those lots to be about 6,000 square feet apiece. So you'd have about 115 units with about at least 6,000 square feet each, and some of those, of course, would be more. As far as buffering and traffic and those things, with respect to buffering, the project will be well buffered. I mean, of course, you see on the site plan here that, a good portion of the, I guess that'd be the eastern side is not going to be used, and then there's a fair amount of space on the western side as well that'll provide a good buffer. And then, of course, from the front, you're facing Veterans Middle School there, so there's no residential property on the front end there. With respect to traffic, of course, the traffic would increase if there was a subdivision developed there, just like it will when the multifamily project at Greystone is completed. I mean, the traffic will go up because, for the most part, Old Guard Road is still fairly undeveloped. But the important thing that the planning department noted is it's not going to change the designation as it is. It's still going to be within that same Class B category. And then finally, the project is serviced by all public utilities. And, the project will also have a positive economic impact in that, there will be 115 new homes developed, so there will be the construction jobs and the build out and those things. And then, of course, there will also be the increase in tax receipts. And then finally, as Mr. Renfro mentioned, the SFR4 zoning is appropriate and compatible with the future land uses of the property. So in conclusion, I'd ask that you consider all of these factors and find that the property, and recommend that the property be rezoned to SFR4. Okay. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
If you were to leave it at RE1, how many houses could you get on there, do you think, approximately? 49 acres.
49 acres, take away 20% for infrastructure. Probably more than 20% looking at this topo.
There's a lot of rock there.
A lot of, it's like a big old hole.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Mr. Dudley.
On the traffic, I realize it's not really your issue, but if the commissioner or if the city engineers were to require the subdivision to make some traffic accommodations, whether that be putting in stoplights or widening roads or anything, is that the sort of thing your clients would consider?
Depending on, you're more than welcome to come up. This is Mr. Bowers, who's one of the owners of Banana Bay.
If you could give us your name and address,
Hi
please.
there, my name's Kel Bowers. My office is at 6053 Veterans Parkway, Suite 200. So yes, as far as any traffic projects, we would be willing to put in stoplights or whatever we would need in order to accommodate the subdivision being able to go in.
Okay. All right, continue. Anybody else have any questions? Ms. Thomas.
Yes, you mentioned one house across the street. Is this going to be a neighborhood or something that they are developing across the street? Just the one
It was
house?
just one house there. I just observed that it just recently been built.
Oh, okay.
All right. Mr. Baker, I'm sorry, who was?
ahead.
Mr. Baker? Ms. Brown?
I'm just concerned about school impact. Can you address that?
Yes, ma'am, it may be that the school district folks would be more equipped to handle that, but yes, from what I understand from the staff report and things, there wouldn't be a major impact on the schools.
But the schools, the middle school is already over capacity, according to the figures I have. So, and the elementary school is one away from capacity. So that concerns me if it's going to be a residential community.
Yes, ma'am. So this neighborhood actually is going to be focused on the active adult type component. So we are looking to try to market to the 55 and up primarily. It's not going to be age restricted, however, it will be age focused. So the majority of residents going into this neighborhood we'd anticipate would not have school-aged children of their own. However, there might be a few, but overall, most families in there, I don't believe, would be bringing children with them.
So this is like a retirement type?
It's
garden homes, this kind of thing?
Yes, it's going to be not necessarily garden homes. They are still single-family residences, ma'am, looking probably right around an average of 1,400 square feet or up. However, it is age-focused. We do have activity centers built into the plan that will contain a community center, pools, whatnot. We're just trying to make it more of an active adult lifestyle community that's adjacent to Old Town. So.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
Will you all also have to have the mail kiosk like they're requiring in most new neighborhoods?
Yes, so we are also planning on doing private roads who would have the mail kiosk and everything.
Okay, so that would not be on Old Guard Road?
Yes, it would be located within the property. If you see kind of where the community center with the
bottom
parking
right
lot is, that's kind of where we would be planning to put everything.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners?
What are the size of these lots in general? 1/10 of an acre?
So generally, the SFR4 is generally going to be required to be about 6,000 acres.
Okay.
Or, excuse me,
6,000
square feet, yes. Okay. And so that's, I'm not entirely sure, but I would imagine that, you know, the smaller ones we see in the middle are right at 6,000, and the ones on the edge are a little bit bigger.
Okay. All right, we do have a question about the school district. Can the school board, school representatives rather, come forward and let's address those issues? I know we have a bunch of apartments going in right around the corner, plus this, and I understand it's 55 and active, but let's talk about schools a little bit.
Good morning. My name is Travis Anderson. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for the school district. We are welcome to growth in the community. Our schools in that area are close to capacity, but we are able to fit more students, and we are actively in the process of redrawing our boundary lines. And so that will help with any development in the area in order to accommodate the students. However, we do have some concerns.
So I'm Ward Odom. I'm the Senior Director of Facility Maintenance and the Interim Director of Construction. 2960 Macon Road is the address for the office. Traffic is really one of our concerns there. Typically in the morning time from 7:30 to 8:30, as we have both a high school, a middle school, and a elementary school there, but different start times, different pickup times. But from 7:30 to 8:30, traffic is horrendous. There is for both parent pickup and buses. And then in the evening time, just on the reverse side of that, basically from 2:30 till just shortly after 4. The bus loop for the schools are in the Old Guard Road in the center. So we need to make sure that we have access to the buses to get to picking up the children. Whoops, got my glasses here. This past summer during summer school, we had a emergency situation where we had a power line come down across the road, and we were unable to unite the students and parents together for multiple hours. We would have concerns about that continuing forward. So really, we're looking for a second way in, a point of entry for a second point of entry for this development to ease the traffic flow at these schools.
All right, Ms. Brown, you have a question?
Yes, when I went and looked at this property, kids were getting out of school at the middle school. The traffic was lined up all along Old Guard Road. It was terrible. Those apartments are not finished, and then you're going to put all these homes. So until you get these lines redrawn, and I don't know how long it takes, but are you planning on putting portables? Because I know if they're near capacity, you've got to put those children somewhere that move into these homes.
So the process to redraw boundaries is something that happens periodically throughout a school district. So it's an ongoing process at all times. And it's something that we do whenever there's new construction in the area. We look at whether or not the school can support that capacity. So it's not necessarily a set date to do that. We do that when the need arises. And certainly at these schools, we are at the point that we need to look at that. However, we are not ready to announce what those new boundaries are. We do know that because of COVID, we see a significant increase in car ridership as opposed to bus ridership. And so that means that we have a lot more cars lining up to pick up their children and drop off their children. So we have a lot of traffic in the morning and in the afternoons in order to transport the students, as well as the bus traffic. And so you're right, that area between Veterans and the elementary school is very congested, and it is a safety concern for us. We have lots of students moving about, we have our buses, and we have our parents waiting. So that is a significant safety concern for us at this moment. Thank you.
On the traffic, one issue seems to be that everybody coming into Old Guard Road to go to one of the schools has to turn left across what would be traffic coming out of both the Greystone subdivision and this one. Would a traffic light or some sort of traffic controls help with that a little bit?
So we think what is needed is for there to be a significant study to figure out the best way to move traffic in that area with the addition of the apartment complex as well as the proposal for the housing development. Whether or not there's an additional access road, which Ward spoke to, that we definitely think is needed in order to provide services and to keep our students safe, but also some traffic control measures that will be helpful in that area. So I think a further study is needed in order to solve those problems.
So when do you plan to start that study?
Well, it depends upon whether or not this is approved. If this is approved, then we would ask that the developer, as part of the development, that they would take on that challenge. Because right now, with the 3 schools, we are able to handle it. When we add more to that area, then that is something above and beyond what we're able to handle as a school district. And so we would look to the developer to try to solve that problem.
Okay. Ms. Thomas?
I think this is to John. Are there any work in process or to do the changing of the traffic at that area for that school because of all the traffic? Have they thought about doing a developing of the roads for better access to the schools? Even before they build this, have they been looking at that? Because they're saying that there's a lot of traffic there.
Currently, they're able to support everything that they need on that side around the schools. And that's what he was just speaking to, is that if the developer were to move forward, he would request that they do a traffic study to figure out how that would work. But currently, there's no plans to enhance those roads.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yes, sir. Did you have something, Mr. Johnson?
Let me address a couple of things. Mr. Dudley mentioned signalization. Most likely that would be too close to the intersection of Old Guard and Veterans for another signal. There is a proposed rehab hospital there at the corner of American Way, Veterans, and Old Guard on the property that's surrounded by those 3 roads. So Greystone and this project and that project, we would work with the school system on figuring out something because, as you say, traffic will be coming out dealing with 3 new developments that were not there when the school system put these 3 schools out there. So it would be a must, but a signalization would congest the intersection of Veterans and Old Guard.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
May we table this until a traffic study is done? I'm concerned about student safety and overcrowding in these schools, and I think we need to be proactive and look at the traffic and look at the capacity of the schools before this is approved, in my opinion.
Are you bringing that as a motion?
Yes, I would like to bring that as a motion, that we table the case REZN 1121-2154 until a traffic study and school study can be done. Because the traffic, I'm concerned, is going to be a big problem.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Several seconds. Okay, all those in favor to table this case until we receive more information, raise your right hand. All right, it's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes.
there's anyone here who would still like to speak, they have that opportunity.
I understand, and that's what I was going to say. If there's anyone that would like to speak to this case at this point, please feel free to do so, but we are obviously not comfortable with the information we have at this point to make a decision. So, do you all understand what we're looking for?
I believe so.
Okay, all right. So no one has any other comments to make or anything? All right. So we have voted to table REZN 1121-2154 for this, for a period. Okay, so we move on to the next case. I'm going to ask school district not to leave yet, just yet, please. Thank you. We may need you again. Case REZN 1121-2155. This is a request to rezone 5.37 acres of land located at 0 Warm Springs Road. Current zoning is GC, General Commercial. Proposed zoning is RMF2, Residential Multifamily 2. The proposed use is multifamily. Fuller Solomon Investments, LLC is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 6, Allen. And we'll hear from planning staff first, please.
Yes, sir. The general land use is inconsistent for planning area B. The current land use designation is vacant, undeveloped. Future land use is park, recreation, and conservation. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is serviced by all city services. Average annual daily trips will decrease to 499 from 3,123 trips if used for commercial usage. The level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact. The site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR zoning district. The three options under Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Minden recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is SFR2, to the south is SFR1, to the east is RE1, to the west is SFR3. 35 property owners within 300 feet of the subject property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 7 calls and or emails regarding this rezoning. That they were in opposition. All of those people in opposition were concerned about traffic.
Okay. So most people were concerned about traffic. All right. Mr. Dudley has a question.
Just to make sure I understand your point about traffic impact, what you're saying is even though it's a vacant lot now, it's zoned for general commercial, and the traffic impact, if it were to be developed for general commercial, would be greater than if it were to be rezoned for RMF2.
That's correct. And we do the traffic study based off a general commercial use. If they were to come in and develop it as a shopping mall, that traffic use would be much more increased over the apartments that are proposed.
All right. Any other questions of planning staff from anyone? All right. All right, and whoever the representative is for Fuller Solomon Investments, please come forward and state your name for the record, please, and your address.
I figured you would like this, Larry. My name is Chris Whiteman. I am with Flournoy and Calhoun Realtors. We are at 2520 Winton Road, right up the street here. I'm here representing Mr. Steve Fuller, Mr. Kane Fuller, and Mr. Philip Solomon, who represent Fuller Solomon Investments. We have done a lot of business with them over the years. We've sold them a lot of properties that they've come out there and redeveloped, and have done a great job of redeveloping some unsightly properties. We won't go in there and name those, but they're now dipping their foot into new construction. And they have put a piece of property at the corner of Flat Rock Road and Warm Springs Road under contract. It's approximately 5 acres, and they are wanting to build multifamily. The property directly to the east of this property is also zoned multifamily, and the properties going down Warm Springs Road towards Flat Rock Park and on both sides are all zoned multifamily. They're trying to capitalize on what we're doing across the street there at Midland Commons. They have made arrangements with the owner behind them to put a walk path to the Midland Commons, so you'll be able to get on this bike path, which is the Dragonfly Trail, and ride your bike, ride your golf cart, walk over to Midland Commons, do grocery shopping, go eat at a restaurant, or just hang out for the day. The schools are within walking distance, so we're not generally thinking that we're going to create a lot of traffic problems in and around these schools above and beyond what's already there. And with the traffic improvements that we've made to Flat Rock Road, I think that this subdivision will not hurt the traffic pattern that was resolved. When we went out there and did Midland Commons, we built this for 10 years down the road, and we did all of the improvements up front on day one, unlike what was originally offered to us by the city, which was to phase it in. We felt like it was going to be good for the area. And Fuller Solomon Investments felt like it was the same, that it would be a very easy job to do. All the utilities were there at the site. The tension, it lays out naturally. There's sewers right across the street. Water is there. And I've got a quick site plan. Can I put this on the... The entrance to this development is all off Flat Rock Road. They wanted to try and keep it on a more commercial road as to lessen the burden of the impact of the residential neighborhoods that are across the street. That may end up changing, but that's going to be up to the fire department. If the fire department mandates that we have to have that loop road or another access, then we'll address that with planning at that time. But for right now, it's one entrance in, one entrance out. There's 5 buildings depicted here that will contain approximately 80 units, and that falls well within the requirement of no more than 16 units per acre for RMF2. We've also got a border around the property, as you can see, completely around the property. We're going to maintain a natural and/or planted buffer, so you will not see a lot of what is going on inside of the community. It's going to be kind of a little enclave. Trying to keep everything buffered from the existing neighborhoods across the street. And we will front all of the, if you will, the commercial activity towards Flat Rock Road.
How wide is that buffer?
That buffer is a 10-foot wide buffer, I think is what city mandates.
Okay.
And it will have, as I think Mr. Renfro pointed out, it's going to have canopy and understory. So you're not just going to, you're going to kind of have a layered effect. You're going to have some small stuff and then some taller stuff. So you'll have a, like I said, you won't just be able to see through there. I'm sure that right when we first get it all done, but as it fills in over the next couple years, it'll be a solid buffer.
Okay. All right. Mr. Baker has a question down here.
Will that be you may have said this and I missed it, is that a gated entrance there? Or?
They haven't decided whether they're going to do a gated entrance yet or not. That's something that's still in discussion.
Okay. What's the size?
I think most of the apartment communities nowadays are gated for security purposes.
What will be the general size of the apartments, bedrooms, bathrooms, that kind
So
of thing?
typically, right now, an average size apartment is going to run between 1,300 and 1,600 square feet, depending on whether it's a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. They're going to build a good mix of units in here, recognizing that a lot of families are moving out into this area and want to take advantage of the growing technology park, the growing Muskogee Industrial Park, and also some of the newer schools that have been built out here in the area.
You talked about kids walking to school. How are they going to get there? They're going to walk along Warm Springs Road? On the aerial photo, I don't see sidewalks, and I don't see how they can get through the property just north of you to get to the school. They can't take the fall line trace because that doesn't open up onto the schools.
So it would be kind of an old school. When I used to have to walk to school, we didn't always follow the sidewalks. We cut through the parking lots. And whereas I know that they're not going to have an easement to cut through a parking lot, but by design, it'll happen by default. There's a church parking lot right across the street in the church, and then, of course, the school backs up to it. That's the middle school, and then the elementary school being right around the corner, which is actually adjacent to. With the lack of activity in most churches Monday through Friday from 8 to 3, I don't think that we were going to get a lot of complaints about a few kids walking through the parking lot to go to school.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Brown?
Those are busy roads, Warm Springs and Flat Rock Road.
There will be, so this sits at the intersection, and there is a crosswalk there. And it is not a lit crosswalk at the time where you can actually press a crosswalk and then get a walking arrow. But I'm sure that that's something that's going to have to be worked out with planning. Is when we go in there to submit our final plans, there may be some allocation that they may make us do what we would call off-site improvements to accommodate for that.
Well, and I'm concerned if children live in this neighborhood, maybe a wall fence should be put along Warm Springs and Flat Rock to keep them protected.
That's a great suggestion. It is, and that's something that we would definitely have to look at with planning. And it really goes down into what does planning want us to do? They want a fence and
the natural buffer.
And the buffer, or do they want just a fence? And a lot of times the planning department has defaulted to, we like the natural buffers, is what they want the most. So it's certainly something that we're willing to look at with planning as we go through and start figuring out what the final design is going to be. And we're not opposed to putting up a fence.
Okay, does that answer your question? All right, anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Baker.
I have a question for the school board representatives.
Okay, can they come up and speak to the school question?
Yes, thank you. Neighborhood across the street is Renwood. Do y'all know, I would assume that school buses drop off inside that neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is a larger community, and
Yeah.
we do drop off inside.
Okay.
That is correct.
So with this, would the bus be stopping probably on Flat Rock rather than pulling into the community?
So one of the unique things about this location is for most of those schools, we have 2 schools there that's in the walk zone. So we would expect those schools to provide those students to provide their own transportation.
I see.
For the high school, then we would drop off and pick up there. And so we would not go inside of that community, it would be on the street. So our concern with this project is that we would like to see sidewalks and safe access to the schools, because these students would be expected to walk to school.
Okay.
All right, anyone else?
Could sidewalks be part of the plan?
Well, I mean,
For the
that's,
developer to put in?
Possibly on their property, but not on the school system's property. You can't legislate it. They might work out something, but you couldn't legislate them to put sidewalks on someone else's property.
right.
That would also change your buffer space too, right? I mean.
Yeah, well, Warm Springs Road's right of way
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
pretty wide,
Yeah.
even though it's just a 2-lane road.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, commissioners? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. All right.
I have a question for
Oh.
Mr. Renfro.
All right, Mr.
Just
Dudley.
as far as it sounds like there's interest in working something out about making it safer for students to walk. Is that something that we would need to require in a motion, or is that something that automatically, when the developer would come for final approval from the city?
You can technically do both. You could put a condition on this case to require them to put walkways on their property. And then as far as the fence or wall, that's your decision. If you want to do that, you can condition that as well. But as far as the school's property, that would just be something that we would encourage them to do, but we can't actually enforce.
I would defer that and have the applicants work with the engineering department. Since the right-of-way is so wide on Warm Springs Road and the buffer is only 10 feet, but sidewalks are required per the UDO. So it's already a requirement, but it'd be a requirement on Flat Rock, which is their frontage.
Okay. And not on Warm Springs.
And not on Warm Springs.
Right.
And then we also have mechanisms in place where the school system could come to us and request access to the fall line trace as long as they meet engineering requirements.
Okay. But you're saying it doesn't need to be.
We would very much welcome that. We think it's a much safer alternative to go down the Dragonfly Trail. There's no vehicle traffic, at least motorized vehicle traffic, along that trail. I'm sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear me still.
Gotcha. All right. Anyone else? Any other questions? All right.
Can you, one more for Mr. Whiteman. Can you tell us the approximate rents for these units?
Yeah, so rents are fluctuating, and right now in this market, it's kind of almost hard to keep up with them, and it's really hard to imagine as we start dissecting what rents are. The average rent in a house nowadays is about the equivalent of a $275,000 house. So the rents in this range are going to probably be between $1,400 and $1,700 a month.
Okay. So you're saying this is going to be really more of an upscale apartment complex?
It is. When you start looking at the
mid-tier
demographic that's out there in Midland, you've got a lot of professionals moving out there that want to work at Pratt Whitney, that work at Blue Cross Blue Shield, that work at Path Tech, and these are the people that are moving out into the area, and we want to service that particular demographic.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Any other questions, commissioners? All right.
Thank you very much.
Whiteman. Yes, sir. All right. All right, we're going to say, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to come speak for this case or have anything to add for this case? Please come forward. And if there's anyone that would like to speak against this case, please come forward at this time. And if you could please forgive us your name, and you are on a correct case now, could you please give us your name and address for the record? Thank you.
I believe I am. William Shirley. I live in the Rinwood subdivision, 7248 Rinwood Drive. Our main concern is the traffic on Warm Springs Road. We understand that progress has to come along, but ever since they started this Midland Common thing and down Warm Springs Road, almost to Blackman Road, they're building another whatever. And the traffic has just, in the 12 years I've lived there, it has just constantly grown to where sometimes it's even like a drag strip running from Flat Rock Road to the 80 overpass. So traffic is a problem. I know, because sometimes trying to leave out of there, especially during the school hours, when the folks are coming to pick up or drop off their kids, you gotta really be on your toes. But in the non-school hour times, it's still pretty heavy. But let's see, and I don't believe there is a crosswalk across Flat Rock Road there at the intersection of Flat Rock and Warm Springs. And that's about all I've got.
Okay, Commissioners, do y'all have any questions of Mr. Shirley? Mr. Baker?
Mr. Shirley, does your property actually back up to Warm Springs?
No, sir. Mine is.
You're inside the neighborhood.
My neighbors across the street back up to Warm Springs.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, my Rinwood Drive parallels Warm Springs Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shirley.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come speak against this case? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Ed Griffin Hagan. I'm 7201 Flat Rock Road. I'm the pastor of the church. We own the property the proposed property, and then we own the property to the south, adjacent to the south of it. Actually, my wife and I live. This parsonage is probably 50 feet from the property line, from the southern property line. You know, and I know that property was already general commercial, and I know Mr. Shirley was worried about traffic, and somebody talked about that. And I had a couple of phone calls from people in Rinwood in the last couple of days, and I just told them, you know, it's the traffic, if it's general commercial already, the traffic has been dealt with. You know, somebody said if there's a little strip mall or something that's built there, you're having to deal with the traffic already, so that's not really an issue. And I mean, we obviously don't have an issue with it, and we are directly adjacent. And I knew Mr. Fuller, and I knew that the apartments were going to not be lower end apartments, they were going to be higher end apartments, you know, and you know, we gave them access on the back of our property that's to the south to get to the walking trail. We just think it's going to be a great addition to that whole area, particularly that they're higher end, nicer apartments. So that's
So you're speaking for the case, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you're actually living in the old My Church parsonage that's located there on Flat Rock Road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's on
I'm very familiar with that.
It's on the northern part of the southern piece. So it's adjacent. It's really close to where the apartments are going to be.
So you wouldn't have a problem with them linking into the Dragonfly Trace?
To the trail?
Yes,
no,
trail.
we worked an easement into the deal with them on that would be on the western side of our property.
Well, I know at one point you guys were thinking of building a new church there. Are you still planning to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the big open, I don't know if you can put that back up there or not, but the big open field that is directly adjacent to the trail, that's where the church will be.
Okay.
And there's still, I mean, there's plenty of room for all of it. At least we feel like there's plenty of room for all of it.
All right. Ms. Thomas.
All right, thank you. How are you doing, Pastor? So you're saying that this would bring beautification to your area?
I just think it'd be good for all of it.
For the whole area?
Mm-hmm.
And traffic would be no problem with you?
No, I think if it's general commercial, somebody could, you know, if we sold it to somebody who wanted to put a Family Dollar there along with a couple other stores, I mean, I think the traffic would be worse.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Dudley, do you have a question?
And you don't have any problem with kids walking through the church parking lots to get to school?
No, I mean, we wouldn't have a problem with them. If they're going to go to the trail, they're going to have an easement anyway.
Right.
Now, we're not the church that's across the street.
Oh, you're the one that's, okay.
We're on the same side of
Flat
on the same side of Flat Rock as,
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. But no, I mean, we'll get them to come to
Well, the
VBS.
church owns the property where the parsonage is, and that's a proposed site, so, yeah. Right. That's the old Baptist it was at one time. All right. Any other questions of Mr. Griffin-Hagen? All right.
All right.
Is anyone else like to speak for or against this case? Please come forward at this time. All right. Commissioners, the floor is open for a motion on this case.
May I ask one more question to
Sure.
the school board reps?
Yes.
My concern is the children walking along these busy roads if they're going to be required to walk to school. How hard is it, or what are the chances of the school district putting in sidewalks to meet what the developers might do?
So it would certainly be our request that the developers find a safe way to provide access to the school for the students. We don't have the funding at this point. This is an unknown project for us, and so we don't have the funding, and we would not be able to guarantee that we would have the funding to develop those sidewalks. But it is certainly our request that that is part of their project to ensure their residents have safe access to school.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right.
I have one more on,
All right,
kind
Mr.
of tag
Baker.
on that. Would funding for something like this come from your normal budget in a budget year, or would it have to come from something like a SPLOST?
So this would not be something that's included in our normal budget, our operating fund. We would have to do an eSplash request for it.
And I don't know if this is for y'all or for Mr. Renfro, but isn't that the sort of thing that we could ask, or that the city could ask the developers to fund?
I want to keep in mind that between Midland Middle School and Flat Rock Road is a private property owner. And once again, we cannot, until they decide to break ground and do something there, we can't require sidewalks. So for this project, the ideal situation is to get them to the fall line trace, but then there's going to be some other things to deal with, like accessing the school's property from the trace, and then possibly looking at, do we need to put in dog legs like we did on Miller Road? Because we were having bicyclists just shoot right across, ignoring the stop sign. And this Flat Rock Road is not near as busy as Miller yet, and it still shoots straight across. So with that situation, there's still things that we would have to work with the school system on and our engineering department and figure out, and the developers, and figure out the best way to work that situation. I would also be curious to know how many kids from Renwood and the Pierce Chapel subdivision behind Renwood are walking to school.
So is that the sort of thing that we would put in a motion, or is that the sort of thing that would automatically happen even as this goes forward?
It's just something I think we need to work with the school system on what would be the best remedy from a safety standpoint.
Gotcha.
I don't know that I would make it a condition.
All right. Any other questions, commissioners? All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right. The floor is open for a motion. Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll go ahead.
Are we ready? Are we ready to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve rezoning case 11212155, request to rezone 5.37 acres of land located at 0 Warm Springs Road from general commercial to residential multifamily. 2, request is compatible with current land use.
All right. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All right. Several seconds up here. All right. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone that's here today. I thank you, commissioners, for your time and your talents. We will move on to new business now, as we have completed our zoning cases for the day. The next meeting is January the 5th, 2022, and 2 cases are scheduled for that date. I'm assuming the PAC schedule is on Trello?
It's on Trello, yes, sir.
Okay.
It's the same thing as this year, the first and third Wednesday throughout the year.
Okay. All right. So do we all approve the 2022 schedule as it's written, I'm assuming? So we'll go with that. How about that?
All right.
All right. Now for the fun part. I have another year on the PAC, but I think it's time for a new chairperson. I've taken on other responsibilities, and I would like to continue to serve. So I'd like to open up the floor for a motion for chairperson for 2022. Yes, ma'am. I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. But I've taken on some responsibilities that I would like. I'm not saying I'm ditching the committee, but I would like to open the floor up for an official nomination, if we could. Anyone? Ms. Weekly.
I would like to nominate Larry Derby for chair.
I'll second it.
Mr. Derby, would you be willing to serve in that capacity?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, all right, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor for Mr. Derby to serve as chairperson 2022, raise your right hand. All those not, raise your left hand. All right. Also, we need a vice chair. So is there anyone who would like?
I make a motion
Wow.
that James Dudley be vice chair.
Will you be willing to accept that position, Mr. Dudley, as vice chair? Okay, we have a motion, second. All those in favor to elect Mr. James Dudley as vice chair, please raise your right hand. And I'll go along with that. All right. I thank you for your service in 2021. I thank you for supporting me. I'm not going anywhere, so I won't even get into that discussion. But I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas, and I hope you take some time for yourself. And let's settle down and slow down a little bit this time of year and get cranking back in January. Thank you for your time, and we are adjourned.